My Hero Academia. So if you've been watching this show from when it was aired, like season one, two, three, that time, you would know that this show was most famous for only one thing, and that was its cringe fans. Like the fans who were shipping male characters with each other, and the whole fan base was like notoriously well known for being cringe, for being like degenerate people. And nobody thought that this show would become as much respected as it has become, especially for me after like almost finishing the final season. Only two episodes are left. And at first, when I started watching the show, I remember that I didn't really think much of the show, first of all. But one thing that stood out to me was, okay, they animate some scenes nicely and they have good music. Like they can put importance on a scene, or like they can create hype really well from any scene. And this thing has still been consistent throughout the show and has been one of the most strongest points of the show as well. But the other thing is, when I first started watching the show, I did not think that this thing would have this much depth in the show. Like I thought this is just another Demon Slayer, or this is just another like One Punch Man, anything like that. Now I'm not throwing shade on any of those show, but I'm telling you in terms of plot. Like in Demon Slayer, it's a very basic plot. Demon Slayers, they slay demons, and that's basically it. Like there isn't much depth to the plot, and everybody unanimously agrees on this because the manga was nowhere near as famous as the anime. Now with One Punch Man, it's a bit different because like with One Punch Man, there's excellent like animation and you can say art style in the manga, which is why people like it. But if you see the core like story of the anime, I don't think it's any good. Like one guy is so strong that he beats everybody with one punch. Like that's pretty much the story of One Punch Man. But with My Hero Academia, I thought that okay, this is such a like wasteful plot, like villains versus heroes. Wow, how original! Like the concept was never been introduced. It was so cliche. Like okay, villains have all like there is a society where everybody has a superpower, and that is divided between villains and heroes, like things like that. So I was like, this is a very mediocre show, and I never ever really like respected it to the level that I do now after the final season. And that is because of a few things. Now the first one was, again, the fight scenes were incredible. Like every single person who was watching the scene in like the final season when Gartsuki Bakugo and like Midoriya team up, like that scene I rarely come across in anime. Like how well they put it together, especially with the music. Like that's the thing that My Hero Academia probably does this the best from all anime. Like from One Piece, from any other new gen anime, they do this thing the best. Is merging good animation with good music that like fits perfectly together. But the other thing that really got my respect from the final season was the depth that they added to different characters. Now in a show like My Hero Academia, you can really like make a nice show without adding much depth to the side characters or without much character development, or like very basic character development. Like okay, a guy is weak, he gets like he trains very hard, he becomes strong, and then he fights a stronger opponent, and then he again trains very hard and then defeats the evil for good, for all, happily ever after. That's basically the plot of something like My Hero Academia if they followed the general route. But that's not what the author did, and that's what got my respect. Like he added so much depth to the characters, he added a realistic element to the quirk society. And one of the things that you would mention if you have watched the final season is that like some people are born with quirks but they still look like human, right, in the My Hero Academia world. But some people, they are born with their quirk like on them. Like for example, somebody is born a lizard, somebody is born a octopus, something like that. And in the show there is a rebellion of these kind of people because they get discriminated against in like the society of My Hero Academia. Like do you realize how minute this detail is and how overlooked this could have been if the author just did not mention it? Like nobody would imagine racism in a quirk society because your quirk like looks different from the others or you don't look human. Like this was one of the things that I noticed in the final season, and that made so much sense with the green turtle guy. Like I forgot his name, but in the final season, like he's basically the back of his rebellion. Like he got hatred towards him, and he was like a shut in his life and all of these things. So this was really impressive from the author that they added this element, and this just added like a really nice flow and a really nice realistic element to the plot of the My Hero Academia. And another thing that I want to talk about is the character development aspect of basically everybody in the show. Now you must have noticed that in anime, whenever there's a all powerful figure, they have almost zero to no character development, right? But in My Hero Academia, the all powerful was All Might, and you see him go through multiple phases of doubt, multiple phases of thinking if he was enough for the society, because he like almost fades away. And this is not like a spoiler or anything, like because it happens in like season 1 or 2, you can tell that okay, this is happening. But another thing is like not just All Might, like everybody in the show feels included. And this is one of the things that I have seen very few shows do, is that they put a lot of importance on the main characters, or like the main character and one or two more characters, but they are very like they are unable to put that same importance of like create that sense of depth with every character. But this is one of the things that My Hero Academia has done perfectly. Like every single character in the class of Midoriya, like you don't feel like they are extras, or you don't like whenever there's a scene of any of them, you don't feel like you're wasting time. And this is the thing that happens a lot in anime. Like you're like, okay, the main character's fight is going nice, 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 and then they pan to like a side character and show some of his story, and you're like, oh come on, I just want to go to the main character right now. And this thing never happened in My Hero Academia for me. And another thing that I really really liked in the show was the parallel between, like, first of all, Tomura Shigaraki and like Midoriya. Like this was pretty common, right? But the other parallel that they created was between Himiko Toga and Uraraka. And that episode, when I was watching that episode, I was like, am I really watching My Hero Academia? Because I did not expect it to be that good. Like I can expect a great fight scene from My Hero Academia, like they can excel my imagination in that thing, right? Just as I said, like the scene from or the scene of Midoriya and Bakugo in the final season. But I cannot expect this level of depth between a villain and a hero. And keep in mind, both of them are side characters from My Hero Academia, and they executed that episode perfectly. And for those of you who have watched, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And not just between them, then they added the complexity of the Todoroki family. And after that, they also added like Midoriya's transformation in season 6, I think, like season 6 or 7, when he's like all alone and he does not like care about everything else, and he becomes this basically vigilante type of person. And in that as well, like they executed all of these character developments so perfectly that I was like, this show has become a near perfect for me now. And this is one of the things, like after watching the show, I was like, this show is above any new gen anime right now, because Black Clover doesn't even compete, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, or any other like Martial, any other anime does not compete with My Hero Academia after the final season, like after My Hero Academia has ended. And I cannot stress this enough, like how beautifully they executed all of the scenes. Nothing felt extra, especially the ending. Like it's very hard to build an ending for such a show that people are satisfied with. And we saw this thing with Attack on Titan. And yeah, Attack on Titan is also a new gen anime. And I would say that it comes on par with Attack on Titan when we're talking about new gen anime, because most people think that Attack on Titan unanimously has the number one spot for the new, like for the best new gen anime. But I tend to disagree here, because if we compare My Hero Academia like A to Z to Attack on Titan A to Z, like Attack on Titan till season 3 was perfect. There were no mistakes in the show, there were no inconsistency in the show. But from season 4 and onwards, like there was like it kind of felt messy. And I'm saying this as someone who watched it like premiere. Now, of course, there were some things regarding the season 4 being okay, this is the final season, oh never mind, this was just the first part, okay now this is the final season, oh never mind, this was just like that kind of thing happened a lot during Attack on Titan final season. But on the other hand, My Hero Academia's like transition, or like rather its end or conclusion, was really smooth. Like weekly episode aired, that's done, nothing else. And that because of that, I think My Hero Academia kind of gets the edge on Attack on Titan. Now in terms of mistakes or like big criticisms that you can make on the show, I only have one criticism for My Hero Academia, and that is that these guys don't kill the villains. Like they will get through so much trouble for catching the villain and then keeping him in detainment, and then he escapes. Like, why don't you just kill the guy? and they have like even captured All for One at some point, and for some reason they don't kill him. And this thing was just mind blowing to me. Like, this is such a basic, like you can say basic kind of mistake, but it is also kind of consistent with shonen anime. Like, you don't really see a lot of shonen anime talking about just killing the person for all. Like, even in shows like One Piece, when you defeat a guy, they either get captured or something like that. But this was one of the things I was like, because in the show many times this happened that they capture a guy and then he escapes, then they capture a guy and then he escapes. Like, this is a bit repetitive, but like again, that's the only criticism that I have for the show. And another thing is that the music they nail every single time. My Hero Academia, like, I from season 1 till like season, you can say from season 1 till 3, every opening was good. There wasn't one opening that I felt like, this is kind of mid. Every opening, from the animation, from the music, from the syncing of the audio and the visuals, perfect. And then there came the opening of, like, I think it's called Bokurano, and I forgot, it was like opening 1 of season 7 or season 6. It is basically the opening when like Midoriya is going through that depressive phase, and that is like top one opening for me, like hands down. And I would like literally make a video of ranking each opening one by one, because that's how much, like, I think they deserve the attention. That's how good the openings were, and this is rare in a lot of anime, because Attack on Titan does not have that good openings. Like, they used one band for like basically all of the openings from season 1 till 3. And I'm not saying they have bad openings, like they have good openings, and some of them are like my literal favorite of all times, like the Red Swan. But My Hero Academia's opening were very much more consistent than any other anime. And again, the fight scenes, I think it's unparalleled to say that anything else matches. Now, some people say that the fight scenes of Demon Slayer are also very good, but I think there's like no comparison between those two, because the fight scenes of those two are very different. With Demon Slayer, they kind of blend this like reality with the fights. Like, you'll see, like in the last season, we saw the explosion going on. That was the most realistic explosion in any anime of all time, and they basically like set standards for themselves, because no anime in the history has ever used a real explosion like that. But for the fights, they also like to do that. Like, they like to blend in real elements of fighting with the animation. And this thing, I think Demon Slayer does this with a league of its own. Like, it cannot be compared to something like the fights of My Hero Academia, who use pure animation to do that. Like, they don't try to make it feel realistic like Demon Slayer sometimes does. So I think there's no comparison between them there. But I can like single-handedly say that My Hero Academia is the best new generation anime. It takes the number one spot, and if anybody disagrees with me, like, feel free to like tell me your thoughts in the comments. But I strongly believe that. And if you haven't watched it entirely, like, finish My Hero Academia and then tell me what you think, because up till even like before the last season, I would not say the same. But the conclusion of the show was so perfect. Like, most anime, they do 70-80% of the show really well, but with the ending they mess up, and it just leaves a bad taste. So My Hero Academia did not make this mistake. But in short, like, the character development really impressed me. The music, the animation, the fights, those all really impressed me. Especially the kind of like backstory and the character development of All for One. That also impressed me really well. And another thing is, like, My Hero Academia, like, they don't have to explain the abilities or what's happening in the show as much, but they still do, and it does make sense. Because if you compare it with something like Jujutsu Kaisen, they can just yap about anything at all, and we'll like, okay, yeah, we don't care, just go ahead, show us the good fight. But with My Hero Academia, it's not like that, because it's a much more kind of simpler, you can say, fighting power, like quirks. But still, like, this thing I also like about My Hero Academia, like, they try to make sense of everything. And one thing, only one scene where I was like, okay, this is a bit extra, was All Might's last fight with All for One, when he's using a mecha suit and he tries to use all the quirks of like class of the class of Midoriya. And that just felt a little bit extra, because he did not have to do that, and his mecha suit was not like a like the abilities he used. That abilities were like at least for 20 robots or like 15 robots, and he used all of them in somehow one robot. And I know they were trying to be symbolical with this, that okay, All Might is using the power of everyone who's behind him, but it just felt a little bit extra. So those were the only two things that I did not like, kind of gave me the ick about the show, was that fight scene with All Might and All For One, and the other thing was like, just kill the villains, please. So, but other than that, it's a great show, and if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you watch it. It will be like the most exciting, it will be a roller coaster of emotions. That's the best way to describe it, because especially with the fight scenes, they're really good. Now I will say that the emotional depth of the characters, that's also really good, but you might not feel it in the start of the show, like up till season 4, I would say, and then after that, that's when the show really takes off. So let me know your thoughts in the comments.